Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to talk about 2026 design trends. I've been talking about this for many years in a row, and we covered some fantastic trends over the years, and 2026 is absolutely no different. It's going to be probably one of the most biggest years in the design world as our industry gets gobbled up by AI and we try to counter it. So what will be different this year? What will be the big themes and styles? So first, I'm going to cover some of the styles that might be popular in the coming year, and then shift towards some overall industry changes and trends that I see. So the company Kittle has a 2026 design trend report, and I'm going to use that as a little inspiration for talking about some of the styles that are going to be popular in 2026. So the first one we're going to talk about is naive design. So think about children's drawings, doodles. Something that's naive is something that's very innocent and youthful and childlike. And this one surprised me a bit. As a professional designer, one might be taken aback by using childlike drawings in your work, typography and illustrations. It's our job to make things look really good and professional, and doing childlike drawings and doodles doesn't seem very professional to me. So it was a surprise that this was a 2026 design trend. But naive design embraces imperfection, awkward proportions, and visible human error as a way to reintroduce warmth and individuality into design work, something that's kind of lacking in today's super polished brand visuals. It's a counter movement. And in years past, we talked about counter movements. This is a history of the dominant style movements in graphic design, and it's like this swinging pendulum from one extreme to another, and this is just one of those swings from we had something super polished, now we're going to do something completely opposite. Just because that previous polished trend was being overused, we want to counter that because it's just too saturated. Humans love to do things to say, hey, I want to be different. I want to stand out. So we're constantly trying to stand out from one another. And that means we swing back and forth between this. Naive, childlike designs is a trend to counter a response to that severe rigidity that modern polished brands have leaned on for too long. This playfulness will be ways brands can remain authentic and relatable moving forward. And not being this super big, popular, multi-billion-dollar brand, maybe you're showing a little bit more of your human side. Another trend on this report is a punk grunge return. And yes, the 90s are back in the best way possible. And I was a teenager in the 90s, so I was there for it all. The 80s, they had their time. They had their comeback in the last decade or so. So now it's time to move up to the next decade in the timeline. I do notice that we tend to relive past decades about 30 years after they happened. Think about bell bottoms coming back. Well, that was like 30 years ago. So this is due to previous generations coming of age and wanting to rekindle their past nostalgias. So think about a resurgence in retro video games. And I see now PlayStation, like the original PlayStation that was popular in the 90s, is now coming back in vogue. Just kind of that retro early 90s style. And so I think that's going to also be echoed in our graphic design styles. So once again, there's a theme. I believe we see this trend push forward as a pushback to over-curated, over-produced visuals. So authenticity over perfection. So you're seeing that theme over and over is this pushback away from rigidity and polished work. That means grit, noise, rebellion, and the visual tension of brokenness to reclaim authorship, voice, and personality. That was a mouthful. Just saying we're rebelling, we're countering, we're being punk rock punks, and just trying to just mess up a design on purpose to bring a layered authenticity to it. So it's messy, it's loud, busy. I think the key word is layered. So you're going to have like an 80 layer Photoshop file. That's probably going to be normal with this. Lots of texture, newspaper, ripped kind of corners. And so everything in 2026 design needs to feel alive again. Now let's talk about distorted portraits. And it lets designers express anxiety, conflict, trauma, and multiplicity. Something a clean portrait that's unedited cannot. So distortion becomes a visual language for complexity and critique. It's perfect for 2026's cultural climate, where division shows up everywhere, and politics, our visuals, everything. So design has always reflected the times. In the early 2020s, we chased realism, from 3D renders to cinematic lighting and AI-generated photorealism. Everything was polished to a mirror sheen. But as AI image generation became mainstream, and it's continuing to become mainstream, that level of perfection stopped feeling aspirational. It started feeling, well, sterile. A warped face doesn't just look cool, it feels. It represents fragmentation and emotion and technology. It's humanity showing up in the glitch and trying to look beyond the chaos. A few years ago, I studied the popular glass morphism effects in my 2020 design trends class I did, and that became popular due to 3D programs like Blender becoming more accessible. I can see something like glass morphism evolving with this trend to produce distortion through see-through textures in glass. Of course, I know you're probably sick of me talking about it, but AI will be a big theme. So AI-assisted and hybrid workflows. Yes, even if we don't like it, AI is coming to our software programs one update at a time. As of writing this, the 2026 Photoshop update has not been announced, although they usually do that in late October. But you bet it's going to be full of those freaking AI updates. Why? Because the world is spending billions, if not maybe trillions at some point, on getting AI out to every software imaginable. And graphic designers, we're stuck in the middle of it all. Adobe is already adding Google's Nano Banana AI image generation tool inside Adobe Firefly's tools. It'll just be a matter of time before it comes to Photoshop as a non-plugin update, so native. I hate to say it, but Adobe Firefly's model really struggles to generate useful images. I hate it. So with them using Nano Banana, it kind of makes Photoshop a tiny bit more useful. But Google's Nano Banana is the first AI image generation tool I really feel like followed my prompts and kept image integrity each time I did a prompt update to the image. I wrote a little bit of an article about that here, and that could be a separate video where I talk about the differences, but it's quite fascinating, and Google Nano Banana really hits the nail on the head. I was working on a branding project the other day and I was stuck on some sketches. I simply uploaded my sketches to ChatGPT and it helped my brain get unstuck and gave me a push toward the direction I needed. I started the creativity. It just helped me keep the ball rolling. And I think that will be the type of workflow help AI will lend us in the coming year. It's not going to do all the work for us, but it is going to help with our creative stuckness and blank page syndrome. With my sketches, I really just needed to see it finished with smooth finished edges without having to go into Adobe Photoshop and vectorize the work. After seeing some options, I realized there's a good opportunity for the ampersand to fit like a glove above the O and the U, something I was not figuring out in my sketches. It needed a lot more work than this, so I went back into Photoshop to tweak this idea further. I am tired of seeing AI slop everywhere, and I do believe it's time to mesh our own sketches and ideas with what AI can do, instead of just handing it all of our creative power. 2026 will be about how to balance that out and use these tools to keep our originality intact. And this all leads to the next trend: more organic and imperfect human touch. So what does that mean? That means adding more intentional mistakes to our design. Because AI slop is flooding the visual markets, I believe this will be countered by more human elements. This means more intentional mistakes, hand-drawn marks, texture overlays, think grain, paper, subtle noise, rough edges, ink bleed, imperfect line work. Similar to some of the style trends we've talked about before. Remember when the EM dash was seen as a sign someone used something from ChatGPT? There are things I have written in ChatGPT that help me edit, and it loves to put these EM dashes just about everywhere. I remember trying to delete them and replace them with commas instead to make it feel more human. And yes, that's not very correct grammar, but I did it anyway. There was almost an embarrassment I felt just using AI to help me. So much so, I even deliberately left misspellings in my writing just to prove it was really me. And yes, I'm terrible at spelling, so if I misspell something, you could tell it's me. I believe designers will want to echo this in their design elements too. Maybe putting an element or two in what seems to be an imperfect place, or having more hand-drawn elements and signatures. Think human fingerprints and even photo prints. As AI is getting so good, it can emulate some of these hand-drawn, uniquely human-looking elements. That might lead to further design style shifts in 2027 beyond as we constantly, as designers, try to keep up with AI and counter it and do something the opposite of what it's doing, just to remain relevant, interesting, and unique. Lastly, another trend is fighting AI slop with maximalism, which is super layered compositions. So this would be rich layering of graphic elements, overlap, collage, textures, chaotic, but within intelligent grids. We're still using grid systems and intelligently laying stuff out, but we're just adding rich layers. So what is one weakness of AI, especially with layout design? It sucks at it. It's terrible. And it doesn't really do good with the nuanced, layered complexity we humans take for granted. What is something we could do as designers to stand out from AI slop? It's to punch it right in its weak spot. Style maximalist layouts will really stand out in 2026. They're harder aspects of design to replicate by AI, the better, and this means many, many, many layers of text, movement, grit, pixels, objects, pen marks, grain, the list goes on. AI has a hard time with the finer details. The type of details designers love to create at 800% zoom. You know who you are. This is exactly the eye for design we spent years fine-tuning, and it will be to our advantage as designers moving forward. It's the little texturing in the background and the imbalance of elements that create design tension, and AI can only replicate, but it can't organically produce it. So I gave ChatGPT an assignment to emulate this style in a poster format, and I gave it lots of ideas, uploaded lots of prior designs, and let's see how it did. It has layers, check. It has textures, has ripped paper, check. It has proper balance and hierarchy, check. This is really not as terrible as I was anticipating. It's missing something though. While technically it checks all the boxes, it still looks generic. There is nothing eye-catching with this piece. The originality factor is missing. The expressive design style you saw earlier in this video is just not there. In the past, I handcrafted the numbers for each year's trends for my blog and video cover photos. I would use Adobe Photoshop, 3D programs like Adobe Dimensions, but this year it was a little different. Because so many of the 2026 trends are heavily influenced by AI or countering AI, I decided to create this year's design using just ChatGPT. Ironic, huh? So how does it compare to my handmade work from the past? It took just as much effort. I still spent over an hour in Photoshop cleaning things up, and I went through 20 plus prompt variations before I actually got something usable. I like doing experience like this not to support or be a champion of AI. I'm still neutral but curious, but to understand how it's changing our game. The process wasn't glamorous either. The early renders were rough. Random glitches, strange artifacts, and at one point, the number 6 looked like it was made of human skin. Ugh, terrifying. Originality will still win, but we need to talk about what that means for the future. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into 2026 design trends. Please sub, like, follow, and share this video. I really hope you enjoyed it and more to come.